HVAC TV, and glad to be here. We survived the flood over the last couple of weeks, and I would love to talk about our experience and a little bit about how we're going to handle HVAC TV going forward, at least for the foreseeable future. So if you don't know, I currently work for Insight Partners, right here, one of the operating companies owned by Air Control Concepts. And I am the host of HVAC TV and the HVAC podcast, the Engineers HVAC podcast to be specific, where our office got flooded in the hurricane. And a lot of people don't know this, but like 2 days before the hurricane hit, we had massive rainfall, which was a big part of the problem. So we had all this rainfall, then the hurricane came in and it totally decimated a lot of the low-lying areas, including Marshall, North Carolina, which is the downtown area where I live, and our office. And I actually did a walkthrough of the office today, the Insight Partners office in Marshall, North Carolina, and it's actually looking pretty good. If you've seen some of the videos we did before, it did not look that good. It had a lot of mud in there and stuff like that. So I'm out here, I'm at my cabin, the Mormino family is safe, HVAC TV is gonna keep on going. We actually have a few scheduled shows here. We have one on Wednesday, next Wednesday, and then we have a couple after that. So we're gonna keep going. We're gonna broadcast from the cabin, from the bunker here, and maybe I'll turn the camera around here and give you a little tour of the cabin, but we're super excited, we're super safe. We thank you all for the support, and I'm out here in our new emergency area, so we learned a lot about, we were prepared on some things really well, but in some things we were not. And I was gonna share some of that with you all. And, I just wanted to hop on here and get connected to everybody and let everybody know how we're doing and how it's gonna proceed with HVAC TV, and also give you some tips on, if you're in an area that's prone to hurricanes or weather. I know Milton is coming up across Florida. So, hopefully you're prepared there. But if you're not prepared and you want to get prepared, here's some things that really worked for us in the time. And I can tell you, my wife's a prepper. We actually have chickens right behind me here. You're probably gonna hear them clucking. We had a lot of water stored up, which was huge. We have a whole pantry of food, 2 refrigerators, which was run by this generator. And one of the big mistakes I made is I didn't have the generator ready to roll. I had a new battery for it. It wouldn't start. I ordered a new battery and I let it sit there. So one of the things about generators is don't let them sit too long with gas in them, especially if it's not ethanol free. So I did all the wrong things there, and the gas, what happened is gummed up the carburetor, so we couldn't start the generator for 2 days, and then 2 days later, we finally got it started, then 2 days later, the power came back on for us, so we were very fortunate. But lesson 101, make sure you keep the generator clean. Ideally, no gas, and you drain the carburetor, and then you want to test it once a month to make sure it's working. So that's the plan going forward. We'll see if we stick to that. I don't know. We're not too good at sticking to it because I'll be like, we're fine. We don't need to test it this month. But I built this little area out. This used to be just a bunch of weeds over here. And we've got a ton of gas cans. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 gas cans over here. I'll see if I can pull this off without dropping the camera. So what I'm going to do is fill all that up with ethanol-free gas and have it for the generator. So generators 101, okay? So I don't know if you lost me or not. Anyway, there's whole house generators. This is not a whole house generator. This is just a 3,000 watt generator. So it supplies enough to run a couple refrigerators, a small AC unit if we need to, and plenty of power to charge everything. That's the other key. So you want to have something to charge all your devices, like your cameras and your shortwave radios and things like that. And I got a phone call. I forgot to do the private, you know, not get a phone call deal. But anyway, what I was talking about is the generator. And, you know, somebody had some good comments there. If you wouldn't mind commenting again, I kind of lost the comments here. I'll pull them up again here in a second. But yeah, so you want to definitely keep it gas free. This again is not a whole house generator. It's 3,000 watts, which for us, we live up here in the mountains in the cabin. We don't need to run the whole house. We don't need to run all the ACs and everything like that, especially from this time of year until summer of next year. We don't need to use the ACs hardly at all. We will use the heat, but we have a wood burning stove for that, so we'll be just fine with the wood burning stove. So the other thing about generators is this is what's called an inverter model. Okay, an inverter, what it does is it's able to ramp up the speed of the motor depending on how much wattage you're pulling. So if you have just one refrigerator hooked up to it, it's going to run very low. The good thing about that, when it runs at low speed, it's very quiet, and it's also not using a lot of gas, so it's very efficient. If you need a lot of wattage, it ramps it up depending on what you plug into it. So that's an inverter generator. Most generators are not like that. The less expensive ones, when you turn them on, they just bang away and they're really extremely loud. This one's real quiet too. So if you just need a generator for, you know, an emergency once or twice every once in a while, then you can get the cheaper one, you'll be fine, but it's gonna make a ton of noise and use a lot more gas than an inverter. So if you have the extra funds and you can get the inverter and it's something you wanna run, you know, continuously for long periods of time or turn on and off over a couple weeks, then try to get the inverter if you can, you know. And again, try to keep it without gas. Don't keep gas in it. Lesson I learned big time, you want to drain the gas out of it with a siphon, and there's a little place to drain the gas out of the carburetor where it comes in there too. So make sure you're doing that, and make sure you're testing it. Make sure you got a fresh battery, a spare spark plug, things like that. The inverter seems more practical. It is more practical, but like anything else, there's trade-offs. It is way more expensive, you know, than you can buy a 3,000 watt generator for $600. This is a couple thousand. I think this was 2,200. So, you know, if you got the money, we chose to invest and you know, buy this one because we were using it in an RV and we were traveling, and you can't bring one of those big bangers in an RV park. So that's why we spent the extra money on that. So that's generator. So for power, you want that. The other thing, you know, you want to be cognizant of is communications. Okay, so we lost everything here. We lost power, we lost internet, we lost cell, so did most of the city. So one of the things I would tell you to do is make sure you have an AM/FM radio, at least. I'm surprised how many people don't. We didn't have one up until I think about 10 years ago. We bought this little thing right here, which is called a shortwave radio. Now, the good thing about shortwave radios is you can pick up AM, FM, and shortwave. Now, shortwave, what that does is allows you to go further ranges. So what can happen, and what happened here is the radio stations weren't broadcasting. When the power went out and the flood hit, we turned this on and we weren't getting any local stations. We're like, what the heck's going on? We didn't realize that the stations didn't have power, so they weren't able to broadcast. They didn't have their generators ready or whatever. They didn't have fuel for that. So we switched over to shortwave, and shortwave, you can get stations all the way to New York, down to Florida, at least from the Carolinas. So that was a big help for us. So if you want to be prepared and get some kind of a communicator, at least a one-way, you can't talk to people through this, get a shortwave radio. You could buy these on Amazon. I think this was $79. So that's tip number one. Or at the very least, go to a thrift store and get a $5 AM/FM radio and just keep it and keep the batteries, because when the cells go down and the internet goes down, you really will have no idea what's going on. Okay, so a step up from that type of communicator is this, which is a ham radio. So this is a little more sophisticated because you could actually talk to people if you need it, if you have an emergency. Turn it on now. So that's Mount Mitchell, which is the highest peak around this area. And this works through repeaters, so you don't have to be on a line of sight. You just got to get to the next repeater, then that sends it to a repeater, and that sends it to a repeater. So you can get messages in and out from just about wherever you are. Now, you're supposed to be licensed to use one of these, technically. In an emergency, they didn't seem to care. The guys who run the repeaters and are manning the channels, they were very gracious and, you know, very helpful with people who who are like me who didn't know how to use them. I didn't have to call out on it, but it was a great source of information, local information, up to date. Kind of reminds me of the old CBs, citizen bands. But this is a great tool to have. It's called a ham radio. This one's called a dual band FM transceiver, but it's commonly called a handheld ham radio. That's what that is. I should have had the shortwave zoomed up. We could have done that. The next step up, or I don't know if it's the next step up, but another type of communication is the Starlink. So this is the Starlink satellite mini version. And I haven't hooked this up yet. I'm dying to hook this up. I haven't had time. But this, anywhere you have power that can connect to the satellites, will connect. Okay, so you have a power source here. It does work off of 120, so if you have a DC power source, you have to convert it to 120, okay? And I think there's a way, I might be wrong with that. I think this is actually DC. I'm not really sure, I gotta check. But if all you have is 120, then you can get something like this, which is a converter, which takes DC 12 volts car battery, for example, and converts it to 120 volts where you can plug in. Now, you don't want to hook this up to your car battery and try to run a refrigerator. That ain't going to work, trust me. But you can use it to charge your phones. You can use it to run something like this. You want to make sure you start your car frequently and you're checking that to make sure you don't drain your battery down in an emergency. But we use this to run our home Wi-Fi router for 2 days while we didn't have power. We just continuously checked the power of the battery of the car and made sure it was still good. So that's kind of how we did that. Okay, so a lot of people are watching our videos and we greatly appreciate it. We've actually just did some HVAC videos down in Marshall on some CDI dehumidification units. And I'm going to show you what I roll with in an emergency or when I'm kind of doing a man on the street and I'm running around and I'm trying to get some videos. I have this great little go bag here. And I'll show you what's in the go bag. So the first and foremost, you got to keep it, if you're in a situation like this or in somewhere where you need to be able to do recording fast, you want to keep it simple. You don't want to get a gimbal and all that stuff. It's too hard to do in the kind of an emergency situation. So this is a handheld called a selfie stick, but we typically use this, and this one's nice because you can articulate it in different ways. You can turn this up and down. It's got a magnet on the back. It's really robust. It's also got an extender, and it's got this tripod. So it's very versatile. And what'll happen is, a lot of time is, if it's just me, I'll put the phone in here and I'll do one of these numbers, or I'll use it to record and it helps to steady the phone, or I'll hand it. You've seen my son Nate on plenty of the videos. I'm calling, hey Nate, thanks, you're doing a great job. This is usually what he's holding. So something like this, very inexpensive. I can't remember what we paid for this, maybe $17 or something like that. You definitely want to have one of these. It'll change your game. A step up from this is a gimbal, but again, if you're in an emergency situation and you're running around and it's dirty and it's loud, this is way better because you don't have to worry about setting it up and dropping it and wrecking it. The other thing that's a big help is these mics right here. These are really high-end ones. You could buy them that are $50, $20 and it'll help out a lot. These ones are a little bit more high-end because we use them when we go to factories and you know, record the air conditioning videos and stuff like that. I'm trying to think if I could zoom it. There you go. That looks good. DJI is the brand here. There's a receiver on my phone now, and I'm not going to take it off because you won't be able to hear me. And then you put this, I got one clipped here, and there's an extra one if you have two people and doing an interview. And there's also, one of my favorites is making it into a microphone. So you could slide it into this thing here, doop, doop, and you could turn it into a little mic. So you can go around and do kind of this number. This works really well if you're like doing a man on the street, walking around and say, hey, do you mind if I ask you some questions? Is that okay? And you know, always be polite. Don't roll up and throw a camera in someone's face. Learn that lesson the hard way. That's not especially in a crisis situation, you gotta ease into it, and you gotta do it in a way that you're there to help them and get the word out and get help to them, not just self-centered reasons. So microphone, selfie stick, you can up your game and get a light. I have one of those in there. The other thing you're going to want to carry around are these battery packs. So you can charge these up and you get 1 or 2 charges on your cell phone, or if you have a light, you can charge your light. You know, they work typically off of USB, either mini or USB standard. I don't know what it's called, but the standard USB works. Get a couple of these, have a bunch of cables with you, have those in this pocket here, and kind of know where things are, because I'm telling you, when you're running around like that, you got to be ready to shoot, you know, with everything going on. And the other thing I have here is, now this is because we are an HVAC company and we are an HVAC channel, and I have my temperature and humidity reader and dew point. If you watch any of our videos, you've seen me use this a billion times. And then we have this as well, which is just an infrared temperature reader. And my screen is 80 degrees. And I'll tell you, it is absolutely gorgeous up here in the mountains right now. I'm going to tell you what the dew point is. And I'm going to turn this around just so you get a look at what's going on here. So just a beautiful evening. And the dew point is 45 degrees. Nice. So it's 69.4 degrees and the dew point is 45 degrees. There. Now I got my HVAC lesson in there, right? So that's good. Okay, what else is in this bag? I don't think there's much else in here that is important, but yeah, so, you know, lessons learned from this couple weeks. Be prepared. When the lights go out, the cavalry is not right around the corner, and the cavalry's not probably coming for a while. So the big lesson we learned is make sure we're prepared. You know, we were prepared in a lot of ways, but one little, you know, link in the chain, if it's not there, it could be a rough time. You know, we had a lot of drinking water, but we didn't have a lot of other kind of water, non-potable water they call it. So water that we want to clean our shoes with, which were real muddy, or clean our clothes with, or something like that. You know, give to the chickens or whatever we had to do with it. Human drinking water. We didn't have enough of that. One day we actually went down to one of the mountain creeks and we took water out of that with a pump that we connected to this. Now we weren't going to drink that water, but we were able to use it for a lot of other stuff. And then we also hooked up a rain barrel during this whole thing, which is not the time to work on your emergency prep during an emergency, right? So anyway, I've enjoyed this live episode. HVAC TV is going to keep on kicking. We are still putting out content, and we dropped a podcast yesterday. I'm going to drop another one tomorrow and one Friday. We're talking live to a Jefferson County health facility in New York. We're going to be talking about the A2L refrigerant transition. If you're watching this and you're not in HVAC, you're probably thinking, what the heck is he talking about? But that's a big thing for the HVAC industry. And thank you all so much for watching. You know, Western North Carolina was hit really hard. Insight Partners is going to rebuild their office here. And, you know, if you feel like donating, Samaritan's Purse is a good organization. They got boots on the ground. They actually landed a helicopter right behind me when I was doing a live YouTube video a few days ago. That was amazing. And you could see on our YouTube channel, which I'm streaming on right now, you could see that video. It was incredible. I was sitting there doing a live and it landed right behind me, dropped off goods, we went and checked it out. And so Samaritan's Purse is a really good organization to donate to. And they're in Boone, North Carolina, so they're rather local. That's a little bit, you know, maybe an hour-ish, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, I'm not really sure. But they're not far from where we are here. So Boone, North Carolina, Samaritan's Purse, you can look them up online. If you want to volunteer for Western North Carolina, like physically come here, I would highly recommend you get with an organization who has it all worked out in terms of where you're going to sleep, in terms of food, PPE, safety gear. You want to make sure you have all that lined up, because it is, you know, if your idea of camping is like a Marriott, then don't come here, you know, because it's going to be a rough go for you. But if you don't mind getting dirty and sleeping in a tent, then, you know, again, you could throw in with an organization like Samaritan's Purse, and they have it all figured out to where you come to their area on a certain date, they take you in, They give you facilities to eat, to sleep. They give you all the PPE, and you go in there and you go to work for a couple days. So that's a great way to give back. I wouldn't really recommend people come up here without some kind of plan. And also, you know, if you've got goods, you know, I know a lot of people who have truckloads of water or clothes and they don't know what to do with them, because a lot of the places, and I'm only speaking for Madison County, which consists of Marshall, North Carolina, Mars Hill, and Hot Springs, you know, there's enough stuff here. Everybody has enough stuff. I just interviewed the Madison High School principal, and he said, man, don't bring us no more stuff. Bring us your labor, you know, bring us your support that way, but we've got enough things to give away. And I did a video on it, and you see just rooms of, the whole gym is full and the whole cafeteria is full. So if you want to give, there's a couple ideas there. Let me see, what else did I want to talk about? I think that was it. So we covered we covered HVAC TV to let you know what's the plan is for that. We covered a little bit of prepping stuff, which is new for us. We don't typically do that on this channel, but I figured what the heck. And we also covered how to give if you want to give, okay? So again, thank you so much. If you want to learn more about the flood recovery and the disaster and how we're doing, you can subscribe to our channel, HVAC TV. And if you're in the HVAC business, please subscribe to the channel, because we got a lot of valuable content on there in terms of, we have people come on all the time who are experts in certain niche applications. So anyway, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.